Michael and Aidan were well known and respected in this community. They were assaulted and murdered in their own homes.
Hi guys, today's case is a more recent one and it is a bit heavier, and before I begin I would like to ask that everybody be quite respectful. You usually are, your sound. It is going to involve different sexualities, different religions and stuff, so I like to just try to keep things respectful in the grand scheme of things. So we will just get straight into it. Aidan Moffat was 41 years old from Lissacull in Ballahadreen, but he was living in Sligo for 10 years. Sligo would be one of the smaller counties in Ireland. The population isn't that, big. It's quite a small county. Aidan was an auctioneer, a financial advisor and a peace commissioner. He had a business called Hazelfort and he was well liked and respected in the community. He was described as bright, well-spoken and sociable. He loved horse racing and regularly went over to Cheltenham and Aintree. He lived alone in Cartron Heights. Michael Snee was 58 years old from Cranmore. He had a happy upbringing and loved Irish dancing. He would regularly do errands for elderly neighbours, which made it no surprise when he became a porter at St John's Community Hospital, then going on to become a carer. He was loved by both staff and residents alike. He moved to Dromahair with a partner, and when this ended, he moved then to City View on Connaughton Road. Here he lived with his dog. He loved gardening and cooking. He was described as quiet and courteous, a gentleman. His eyesight was starting to fail, so he had actually retired early. On the 10th of April 2022, Aidan Moffat was seen running errands that morning. In the afternoon, he went to the Village Inn pub where he was described as being in good spirits. He left here at 4:30 p.m. to go home. The following day, on Monday the 11th at 8:30 p.m, emergency services were called to his home where his body was discovered. I'm not sure who, made the call or how he was found. I don't know if it was a neighbour or family. The following day, on the 12th at 10:30 p.m, the body of Michael Snee was discovered. His teenage nieces hadn't been able to get in touch with him and they became concerned and called around. So I believe it was them who discovered his body and called emergency services. Both men were killed quite horrifically. They had, quote, grotesque injuries. They were, quote, severely mutilated. And that's as far as I'm going to go into, because any legit sources, that's as far as it goes. Online forums will discuss other stuff, but I'm not going to get into it because there's nothing that I can go back on. So what I hadn't said was Aidan and Michael were both gay. They weren't, they hadn't publicly come out, and they were both, I think, just quite private about it. So when the news hit, that two gay men in this small area had been murdered, obviously straight away people were saying it was a homophobic attack. The Gardaí even issued warnings for members of the LGBT community who were going to be meeting up, let's say on apps like grindr, to be very careful to meet in public places. The Gardaí said that they were keeping an open mind for the investigation. They were obviously investigating it as a hate-related motive, and they did believe that Michael and Aidan met their killer online. They also actually appealed to anyone who may have been attacked, assaulted, or approached by someone who made them feel uncomfortable to report these. So like I said, Sligo is small. The population is about 70,000. The community was in shock with Aidan and Michael's murder. Their homes were only a kilometre apart. So again, this is what I'm talking about. It's so small and tight-knit. The postmortems would show that Aidan died from multiple sharp injuries to the head, neck and chest. And for Michael, it was to his neck and chest. There was forensic samples taken from both homes. A pair of jeans were actually found out on a green near Michael's home. However, I don't think anything came from that. Nothing ever was followed up on. Maybe it was, but I feel like that was just a random, when you find when you see random pieces of clothing around, like coats and shoes and stuff. Over 100 statements were taken and forensic samples were taken from each of the crime scenes. And speaking of crime scenes, I'm going to go back a couple of days to the 9th of April. So 49-year-old Anthony Burke was chatting to someone on Grindr, and they decided to meet up. And so he invited this guy around to his home. I believe it was an apartment on Cleveragh Road. So the two men were in the home for a few hours and they were chatting, whatever. And then this guy, he was a lot younger. He was like he would have been, let's say, in his early 20s. He started showing Anthony like other men he was chatting to on Grindr, you know. So I don't know, was he supposed to be trying to brag? Were they just discussing kind of, oh, who, you know, have you been chatting to this person, that person, because it's such a small community? I don't know really why he was doing this, but he was showing him. And Anthony would later say that he reckons he showed him about 12 different men that he was talking to. Then he took out rope that he had in his coat. So he obviously was just sitting there with his rope in his pocket all this time, and started talking to Anthony about how, like, he likes to tie the men up that he's with. And Anthony wasn't really into that, but this guy kind of kept going on about it and insisting, and Anthony really just wasn't into that kind of, you know, play. So eventually he just became very uncomfortable and he asked this guy to leave. And so they did. So he did. So he actually left with him, maybe so that he wouldn't cause a scene or something. So he left and walked up the road with him a little. However, as Anthony was walking back down, the guy came up behind him all of a sudden and stabbed him in the eye with a 7-inch kitchen knife and said, "There you go." Kind of managed to, you know, steady himself, let's say. Obviously he's stabbed in the eye, so he's panicking a lot, and he, like, you know, says, "Why?" And he says the guy's just standing there looking at him. And he would say that he believes that had he fallen to the ground, he believes he would have stabbed him again or attacked him more. Someone came along then, so your man, like, ran, and Anthony was brought to hospital. But there was like a forensic tent and stuff put up on the road, and Anthony would say that his dad, because people knew it was him kind of involved, people were calling his dad and telling him that his son had died, like, because they thought he was in the tent. So obviously at this stage, I don't really know if the Gardaí actually visited Anthony in hospital or was it later. I did read that it was after Aidan was killed that they went to visit him. So maybe they just kind of, you know, was it not taken seriously until then? I don't know. But Anthony would tell the Gardaí that he didn't actually know the guy's name, but he obviously gave a description of him and said that he knew that he lived close by. So forensics were obviously taken from the 3 scenes. And after Michael was murdered, the Gardaí went to Anthony and took him from his home and put him up in a hotel. They would also then go around. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not really sure how. Maybe Anthony recognised some of the men on when the other guy, you know, when the suspect was showing him on Grindr. Maybe he recognised some of the men, and that's how he was able to point them out to the police. Because the Gardaí basically went around with Anthony to the different homes, and like that some of these men would have had families and stuff, because obviously maybe they weren't out, or, you know, we don't need to get into that. But anyway, they went around warning as many as they could. Anthony was able to identify his attacker on CCTV, and so Gardaí were able to obviously finally identify the attacker. So at 1:30 a.m. on April 13th, armed Gardaí went to a home in Markievicz Heights. They cleared out the homes around it and shouted for the residents, who I believe was like 7 or 8 residents in the home, and that included some small children, and like shouted for them to get out, to clear the house. They then arrested 22-year-old Yousef Palani, and I believe he was like the eldest child, or else he was one of the oldest ones, but from what I gather, he's the eldest. The following day on the 14th, he was charged with 2 counts of murder and assault in Sligo District Court. So again, sources are very vague about a lot of stuff. They don't share a lot, and I've seen a lot of online forums commenting on that, and they kind of reckon it's because of whatever, you know. But Yousef Palani is the son of either Iranian Kurds, I've read, and I've also read Iraq, like this family from Iraq. Now, I know they're right beside each other, but I'm not sure which. But they settled in Sligo as part of like a UN program, and they were living in the house in Markievicz Heights for 10 years. There had been never been any problems. Yousef Palani was not on any Gardaí radar. He had never committed any crimes before this that he'd been caught for anyway. His defence, Jerry McGovern, did not apply for bail. He did ask for him to be on suicide watch and for a psych evaluation. Palani was held in Castlereagh prison. He had been granted legal aid because, again, I read either that he's unemployed or that he's a student. When he would appear at like the district court and stuff, there was a huge angry crowd outside shouting, you know, abuse and stuff like that. His family actually would come out later to say that they had been, you know, then like the target of abuse after all this came out and stuff like that. And I believe then they needed to have like protection from the Gardaí. I think he could have changed his counsel a couple of times, because in December 2022, then when he was up in court, his defence then was actually Brendan Green. And then in July of this year, it's also reported that he changed counsel. Anthony Burke would actually go to court. The crowd applauded him bravery and the fact that he helped to catch Yousef Palani. It would also turn out, right, so he was 49, he hadn't come out publicly either. So basically by what happened, he was forced to come out essentially. Through all the court appearances, Palani remained silent. And on the 31st of July this year, he pled guilty to murder. He also pled guilty to assault, which meant then Anthony wouldn't get his day in court. So he, you know, he wanted that. He wanted to be able to face him. He wanted to be able to tell what happened. So none of that would happen because obviously he had been charged with assault, and then they upgraded it to attempted murder. But then because he pled guilty, it went back down to assault. There's a few things when people plead guilty. So basically by pleading guilty, they spare victims or the victims' families of having to go through the length of a trial, having to hear the horrible kind of details of the, you know, of the attacks or the murders. But, and I know it's going to come off as very bad and selfish, but also I feel like then we're not going to know, because now he will never, nothing has to be put into trial. Like, so he, you know, nothing will come out about why he done this, you know, who, was there anybody else involved, why, how, what, all of these won't be answered. But if it's a relief to the victims' families, then that's enough. However, maybe they will also would have liked to know why. Justice Mary Ellen Ring would tell, you know, that the victim impact statements were to be prepared ahead of the sentencing on October 23rd, and she said it was vitally important that these be heard. After the murders, there was shock and condemnation all across Ireland. It opened discussions to like that, how LGBT people are treated in Ireland. It obviously opened other dialogues in terms of immigrants and different religions and stuff, and I don't really want to get into that because it can kind of absorb just the hate groups, and I don't want to get into that. So that's why I was asking earlier for people to be sound. Vigils were held after for the men, and thousands attended. On the 18th of April, the funerals of both Aidan and Michael took place. Aidan's was in Christ the King Church in Lissacull, and Michael's was in St. Joseph's Church in Ballytiernan. So as I said, not all the information is going to come out now because there won't be any actual trial. However, we do know some stuff. So it has been reported that Yousef Palani was caught on CCTV cycling towards Aidan's house and back again. So that's how he got there. Hours after killing Aidan, Palani would go to the mosque, his local mosque. It was Ramadan when all this happened, so he went. It would be said that he just was acting normal. He was laughing, he was joking, all of this. It was also revealed that the Gardaí found a 6-figure sum in the Palani household. Now, again, that could mean anything from 100 grand up to 999,999. One source said it was 250 grand. Now, obviously, we don't know. That might not necessarily be Yousef Palani's. Obviously, some people are then saying, ISIS paid him to do this kind of thing. Whereas I don't know if I've ever heard of ISIS actually paying someone to do these things. They usually do it because of, you know, the glory for their religion and their God and all this. So I don't know. I had 2 ideas. Now, you can tell me like to feck off with these and also put in your own. But either it wasn't his, it could have been his parents. I don't know what his parents done for work. I don't know what his dad done for work. Could it have been a nest egg that had been kept in the house over those 10 years? you know, like a bit of a cash side business, or like that, just some cash sales from whatever job or business he had, and it just, you know, like he just didn't put it into a bank, he kept it. Or the other thing that it could have been, and again, this is probably, I would actually, this one's probably less likely, could it have been money that Yousef Palani had earned from, like, we don't know how long all this was going on. We know that he was talking to several men on Grindr or whatever other apps. We don't know, and we're going to come to this, because I don't know, had he actually engaged with some other men first and actually, you know, been with them or whatever, and it wasn't to harm them, and then we kind of escalated to that, or what. So there is kind of that, and I mean no disrespect by saying that to the victims, but I wonder, could he have had other men in the area who, you know, were, you know, like the whole sugar daddy, sugar baby thing. Again, I could be completely off by that, but that's the only reason I think it could be Yousef Palani's money. Otherwise, I would vote for it being his parents. Either way, the Central Access Bureau, so CAB, they are investigating that now. They've taken over that. I would, however, say that if someone was granted legal aid and at least 100 grand was found in their home, legal aid should be revoked. In terms of his religion, that, like, because a lot of them are saying that it's homophobic attacks, basically, that's kind of the black and white of it. And one says that, one source says that a Garda source says, God made me do it. So that would tie into the kind of, like, the stereotypical of, well, he was Muslim and, you know, homosexuality is against their religion. So, you know, oh yeah, no, so God, he, you know, and that's it. It's a hate crime related to Islam. However, it could be deeper than that, and I would think it's deeper than that. So we do know that Yousef Palani is he is described as a devout Muslim. Even in prison, he is a model prisoner, and that he prays every day. Anthony Burke, Aidan Moffat and Michael Snee, they were all gay men in Sligo, all, you know, kind of older, and they were all not publicly out. They had not even that they hadn't publicly come out, but just they were obviously private about their business, their personal business. And I feel like this is who he targeted. Obviously older, so it would be more easy to attack, but also then less likely to maybe do anything about it. You know, if something went wrong and he wasn't able to actually kill them like that with Anthony, did he think maybe with the embarrassment then, or like that, even if he had robbed someone maybe, you know, would he think then they're less likely to go to the Gardaí because they don't want the kind of this to come out, maybe if they're married or anything, you don't know. Because we did say that some of the men that he'd been talking to were married. Also, so many people believe that Yousef Palani is gay. And if you've seen the TikTok videos like I have, not to stereotype, but I think that's a valid kind of theory.
This is a work of art.
And so then if that was to be true, we would have to say that Yousef Palani is also a gay man who hasn't come out. And so I wonder, is it nearly like projection, you know, like that the hatred for himself that he's made feel, let's say, from his religion or from his family. I don't know how strict they are, how conservative and stuff they are. That pressure makes you hate yourself, let's say, and you take it out on someone else. And these men, apart from the age, were him, if that makes sense. I hope I'm making sense. And like, so there are sources saying that psychologists have said that they do believe that Palani was gay. So is it a simple homophobic attack, or is it the act of a repressed gay man who doesn't know what else to do? Like, I wonder, are there other men in Sligo that he was with in the conventional sense of meeting up on Grindr for what you do? And they may not come forward now because like that they have families, or they just don't want the embarrassment or shame now of having been with Yousef Palani. So as I mentioned earlier, Anthony Burke says that he was shown men that Yousef Palani was talking to, and he said there was like at least 12. And he believes that that was a list. He believes that that was a kill list and that he would have continued on. He killed Aidan on the 10th. He killed Michael on the 12th. He had attacked, like seriously attacked, and Anthony believes he would have killed him on the 9th. So we don't know then what he planned to do on the following day and had just got caught. Gardaí do believe that he is not, like, quote, radicalised. They believe he is a lone wolf operating. They are saying that they believe there are serial killer tendencies. Now, if you want to get into the whole thing, I know with the Sean Evans video, I got into this about the whole, like, oh, it has to be 3 people. But if the intent is there to do more, also, if he had intended to kill Anthony, that would have been the 3. Plus, I've also heard recently that some, like the FBI and other things, are saying as low as 2 now or as high as 4 for it to be counted. You could also consider it a spree killing because there's no cooling off period. But sometimes I feel like we just get hung up on labels anyway. So the reality of it is 2 men are dead. 1 is seriously injured. He has lost partial sight or all sight in 1 eye, and that we are pretty sure that he planned to kill more men. The theory of it being, you know, like related to ISIS or terrorism, I don't know, because, like, don't they normally kind of have like an online manifest, or there's something left behind to show? Now again, maybe there was and we won't be told about it, because I remember reading a thing before where, like, you know, all the kind of foiled attempts and stuff like that aren't obviously reported on because there would be hysteria. So maybe it could have been found and we just won't ever know, especially now because it's not going to trial. But I would feel like the whole, like, thing with ISIS is they want it to be like the glory to God and all this stuff, glory to Allah. So you would want it to go to court because you want to talk about it. You want to, you know, you want to say this is why you've done it and stuff, for, like, you know, for the pride of that and stuff. Again, I could be completely off, and I hope I'm not coming across as ignorant or prejudiced or anything like that towards religions or anything else. Personally, I lean towards the repressed gay man and, you know, didn't know what to do. Maybe there's a combination of all the aspects, I don't know. Let me know what you think. Again, please do be respectful with this. Sentencing is on October 23rd. Perhaps he will say something then. Sometimes they will, like, they'll apologise to the families and stuff like that, so maybe we'll hear something from him. But he hasn't said anything yet so far. Obviously his family haven't really said anything except for the fact that they're being targeted and stuff like that. Let me know what you think. So I won't ramble on this time. So thanks for watching. Thank you for your support. We will see you in the next video. Thanks. Bye.